Hey, stop making these mistakes now. Don't let them crash your homesteading dreams. What am I talking about? Well, I've been thinking about it, and I actually watching a couple other videos of other homesteaders here on YouTube, and I came up with these two thoughts of things that you want to not do if you want your dream to work out and you don't want to crash and burn and have a hard time moving forward. So let's talk about that. Welcome to Goose Pond Hideout. Who am I? Come on, who am I? That's right, I'm Rob. So what are these two mistakes that I'm thinking of that could, crash your homesteading dreams, that are, going to make life more difficult than it needs to be? Because, I mean, let's face it, life's already difficult enough. No matter whether you're living in the city, living on the homestead, whatever, life's tough. So what can we do to like smooth it out and make it easier? And again, I was watching some other videos from some homesteaders, and two things really popped up as the major things. Obviously there's a million zillion mistakes that we all make day in and day out, but there's two biggies here. And the first one is, I was watching, it's newbie home. You got new homesteaders, people that are just starting out, and then seasoned and experienced homesteaders. And this video that I was watching was somebody that lived in the big city, and they were out in California, and they moved, and they've just moved into the homestead, and they're, wow, haven't had mosquitoes around here for a while. And they're doing an activity, and they question, people are saying, what are you doing that for? That you should be doing something else instead. And I don't want to give away too much information because I don't want to pick on the person, other than the fact that it motivated me to share this information with you, is that focusing on things that move you toward your goal. And there's, every day you get up and, you make decisions about, should we do this? Should we do that? What activity, what project am I going to work on? And the thing that you want to always be thinking about is this project moving me closer to my goal of, in the case of our discussion here, homesteading? And it's easy to get distracted with goals that are, less work, more fun, whatever. And I'm not saying that you have to just struggle and buckle down and do all the hard things, all the time. So maybe come up with like a 80-20 rule or something like that. But there are projects that will take up your time, and they don't really help you out as far as homesteading goes. And an example would be of a good task is chopping and stacking firewood so that you'll be able to heat your home when winter gets here. That's a necessary activity. If you don't have any firewood, how are you going to heat your house yourself? So chopping, cutting, stacking, splitting, whatever, your firewood is a good task. But putting down new flooring in the living room, while that may be a task that you want to do at some point in time, it's not a task that's moving you closer to your goal of being self-sufficient. Maybe you can get by another year or two with the old floor. Do you really need to replace some cabinets? You need to mow your lawn, but mowing your lawn isn't really moving you closer to your goal if you need to be working in the garden to have your vegetables. You need to pick your apples off the apple trees before the deer eat them all. And those kinds of things. So that's what I want you to be thinking about as you pursue an activity You know, you get up in the morning and you have your coffee and you're getting dressed and you're deciding what you're going to do during the day. Is what you're doing moving you closer to your goal, whatever that is, you know, or is it just more of a like fun thing to do and it's wasting your time, you know? And that's, again, you know, if you want to go out to a dinner because you've worked really hard all week, go catch a movie, you know, you can still do some fun things, but you just want to be careful that you don't spend all your time doing the fun things and then you've got no food to eat and no heat for your house and you know, and those kinds of things. So be thinking about that. And the second thing is, you know, and this is even for seasoned homesteaders, is getting, you know, like too confident in what you're doing. What, you know, if you're new, you don't know what you're doing and you get in over your head. You know, you get animals before you're ready to get animals. And, you know, I mean, when we first moved to the homestead, we were all excited and we had chickens inside the house in containers because I hadn't built the chicken coop yet. So I'm frantically building the chicken coop while the chickens are getting bigger and bigger inside the house because we had no place to put them. And, you know, so when we got the geese, I made sure I had, you know, a house for them, a coop all set up in that, so that, you know, we were ready for them. And the other thing is then, you know, jumping in, getting animals, and then you decide that you don't really, I can't believe that we never have mosquitoes here. You know, so those kinds of things. And even if you're if you're somebody that's experienced, an example for me is, you know, I started a garden right away, of course, when we moved here. Had a rototiller and tilled up a nice patch. And we had tomatoes and peppers and green beans and radishes and cucumbers. And I mean, we just had a great year that first year. We had all kinds of, you know, I mean, we had cucumbers coming out our ears. I couldn't even figure, you know, we're putting them in buckets and stuff and putting them in a cool place so they'd last before we could, you know, can them up and make pickles and things. And the same thing with green beans, and we were eating radishes like crazy, and, you know, we're putting tomatoes, cutting them in half and putting them in the freezer, and the same with peppers and that. And we had 2 or 3 really good years. And I thought, well, this is working out really well, right? And then I can't remember which way it happened, but we had a super hot and dry year, and we had a cool and wet year. And I can't remember which one. We had one, and then the next year we had the other one. And it was like, you know, God giving me a slice of humble pie there, you know, saying, don't get so confident that you know what you're doing. I got a few surprises for you. So, you know, the hot year, all our radishes bolted. Our pepper plants were like 7 feet tall with no peppers on them. And I mean, they were huge. They were, you know, much taller than me. And they didn't produce peppers until really late in the season. So we had hardly any peppers in that. And you know, nothing did well that year. And then the year that was wet, is all our cucumbers rotted because the vines were just on the ground. You know, I just planted the little hills and just let them creep across the ground. And it was so wet that year, and we're flat and low here, so the water just stands on the soil and that. And our cucumbers all rotted before they got ripe. And so we had no cucumbers that year. So, you know, it was a real learning experience. Now I build like a hoop or a teepee or something so the vines can grow up off the ground. So, you know, even when you're seasoned and experienced and know what you're doing, there's always going to be a surprise that you're going to have to deal with. And again, that was, you know, God giving me a slice of humble pie to tamp down my confidence that this is so easy and I know what I'm doing and everything is going great. And, you know, the other thing with animals, with chickens and that, is, you know, you are eventually going to have to deal with a predator issue, and you're going to have a loss. we lost one of our geese this year, back in the spring. Is one of them got lame. One of the females was lame, and I think what happened is she was sitting on a nest of eggs, and I think something disturbed her. I didn't see any injury on her. You know, I caught her and picked her up and looked at her foot and leg and hip, and I didn't see, she wasn't bleeding and no lacerations, no injuries, but she was just, you know, lame. She was just like hopping. And they were staying out on the pond at night, and I got up one morning and her body was off in the woods, you know, all torn up, and I was really upset about it because it was my fault. I didn't take care of her. I should have been putting her in the coop at night. You know, I should have caught her, herded her into the coop so that she could spend the night, you know, resting and well protected. So you know, it's still, even today, and it was months and months ago, it's still bothering me that I was such a neglectful caretaker of our geese. So, you know, be thinking about all those things and focus on what's important, and don't feel, you know, don't get overconfident in your abilities. Don't jump into too much too soon, getting too many animals, getting too big of a garden. You know, you end up with an acre garden and you got, you know, 5-gallon buckets full of cucumbers, and you know, what do you do with them all? And it's just, give yourself a chance to you know, slowly learn, and no matter how experienced you are, because, you know, newbies, you learn a lot. Seasoned homesteaders, you learn a lot. Focus on the tasks when you're moving from one place to another. You know, is this helping me out, or am I just spinning my wheels? And that's, you know, what I wanted to share with you today, is those two things, because I want you to be successful in your journey through life, from one chapter to the next, because it's all about your freedom. Freedom for you.